Welcome, here we are again, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about something which I guess fits within university success, which we've done a couple of talks on now on the website. The title is a little bit provocative, I'm aware. Are degrees programs wasted on teenagers? But the subheading is kind of a little bit more where I'm kind of heading with this is, should you wait to go to university? That's what I'm going to talk about. When's the right time? What's the different times you could go? When could you go? You can go 18, you can go a little bit later. I'm going to talk through some of my experiences, both as a scholar, someone who went to university, someone who teaches at university, and also someone who knows lots of people who went to university at different times. After that, I'll maybe talk about some myths as to why I think most people go at 18, and then maybe a few suggestions as to when is the right time. Hopefully this will be useful for people who are thinking about university, whose kids are thinking about university. So I'll be speaking to a few older people here as well, hopefully, are kind of thinking, okay, I want to encourage my child to go to university, but when is the right time? What worked for me? Or I never went to university, so I don't really know. How do I support them? And this links into the stuff that I do in terms of my uni prep course. So as well, if you want to know a little bit more information about that, you can look below. There'll be links below. And also I recently started mentoring program. And while that is very limited in terms of numbers, that process of speaking to people about university life and about life in general, that's something that I'm willing to do with people. So if you do have questions about any of this stuff, you want some more specific points around any of the stuff that I talk about today, or you want to know how this relates to you and you can kind of give me a bit more detail, feel free to contact me and we can have a discussion. Right, so my personal experience. I went to university when I was old. I was a mature student. I always like to tell my students that I was mature when I went to university. I was mid-20s. I could try and think back to when the exact day was, probably 24, 25. And when I went, I had worked for a number of years, full-time, in an area connected to the degree program that I went on. And I was very, very, very sure I wanted to do a degree. Up until that point, I had not been that academic. I didn't do that well at school. I never concentrated in school. My teachers may even say I was disruptive in school, perhaps. And one of the reasons that I never really did that well is nothing grabbed me. I never had the hook. The topic that I ended up studying was a hook for me, and I enjoyed it. When I was ready, I was ready. And when I went, I had worked for a long time and I understood two things. One, how to work, how to put in some graft. And two, that the world of work that I was currently in was limited. I had limits. There was a ceiling which I was approaching already in my early to mid-20s. I understood that I probably needed a step sideways. A degree, you can do it in many ways, but a step sideways with a degree to be able to start up on a new ladder. So that was my own personal experiences. I was also not really ready when I was younger. You know, boys, especially at 18, can still be boys. And we're supposed to be men at that age. I certainly wasn't. I'll speak from my own personal experience. And in my mid-20s, I probably still wasn't as well, still just a big kid, and probably still today to some degree. So my personal experience is that it was much better for me to wait. If I had gone when I was young, it would not have worked. I'm almost certain of that. My friends' experiences. My friends, many of my friends went to university at the quote-unquote right time, at 18, followed on from A-levels. A variety of them have gone on and used that degree, especially the ones who have done medicine, for example, have gone on and become doctors. That tends to happen with a degree like that because it's a very solid job and you've committed so much time to university life. Other friends who have not done that, who took other degrees that are less clearly aligned to a job, have actually not really ended up going down that path. Bunch of friends have ended up in a variety of different ways. Now, am I suggesting that they shouldn't have done that degree? No. What I'm highlighting is that your ideas about what you want to do when you're in your teenage years and early 20s change dramatically as you get older. So that's something to be very, very aware of. It's a commonality amongst my friends. So, you know, what does that mean? Maybe something, maybe nothing. But then combined with my experiences and then finally with my students' experiences. When we welcome students to university, it's great. They've come to a degree that they want to study. They're interested in the topic. But I am very honest with them. By the end of this degree program, you may have realized you don't want to stay involved in this topic. And that's fine because university teaches loads and loads of skills. Critical thinking skills, writing, research, a bunch of soft skills, social skills, all the rest of it. So university is great, regardless of whether people stay in that topic. However, it is something we've got to be aware of, that a very high percentage of our students, I'll rephrase that, a significant percentage of our students don't use the degree in the way in which you would assume that they would use it. Don't go straight in to stay in that business. They use the skills, they use the soft skills, they use a bunch of the critical thinking, of course. But do they use the actual specifics of that degree? Not necessarily. And I wonder at that case, if those students during that degree, and I've seen this happen, fall out of love with that area, understand they don't want to stay in it, does that result in a lack of engagement? It can at times. And you can find the students say, I don't want to do this anymore. And we encourage them to stay on, complete the degree because of the amount of money that's invested in it. And plus, we know that there's a bunch of soft skills that enable the student to maybe go and retrain, do a master's, whatever. The opportunities with a degree and which are usually better than without a degree. So unless it's in the first year and the students are like adamant they're not into it, we usually encourage them. I think that is the best thing to do. However, it's something we've got to front up to. Many students start and then throughout the degree realize they don't want to do it. Why is that? Is it because the degrees are bad? No, it's because they're 18 when they start. And when you're 18, you're not 22. And when you're 22, that period of life is fantastic for your personal development. I mean, you literally go from being a child to being an adult. You know, officially, yes, you're an adult at 18, and some people, you know, live very different lives, and at 16 may have those kind of adult qualities because they've been forced upon them. But university encourages people to turn into that kind of adult life, and they figure out what they want and what they don't want. So that kind of leads me to where I'm going. Why are universities? Are university programs wasted on teenagers, 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds? And the argument that I'm trying to make is potentially yes. Not wasted as in they get nothing out of it, but that maybe, especially in the current world we're in now, they would be better holding off. One of the things I think that there's myths around university that you've got to do it straight after A levels, and you'll have heard this. I know I heard it, and still hear it. If you don't do it now, you'll never do it. Really? Is that the case? I don't think so. And that is a myth that I think, one, is probably outdated, but two, if it is dated, it's from a time where university was very different. One, universities were either very much cheaper or free. Okay, well now, going to university is no risk. It's just a few years where I'm not earning money, but I'm not accruing debt. Now we're accruing debt while we're doing this. And it means that if you go in and do something that doesn't set you up for the future, you've now not set up for the future, but with debt, which is problematic. So this notion of if you don't do it now, you'll never do it, I think is problematic, and it comes from possibly the wrong place. Especially if this degree doesn't guarantee you a job anymore. And we know that that's not the case. There's very few degrees guarantee you a job. One or two, I've mentioned medicine, of course. That does usually help people get a job. But most degrees aren't like that. Most degrees you need to go and work when you finish to get the job that you really want. So I think that kind of notion of going at 18 and that you won't do it and you won't go back is a little bit suspect. And especially now as well that we know people can succeed in entrepreneurially. We know that people can advance their own development. They can do their own development. They can advance themselves. They can go into the world of work. I strongly think that finishing school and going working in a bar for a year is useful. It sounds like for some people that's a nothing job. Of course it's not. The amount of skills that you learn, the graft that you learn, the ability to communicate with people, essential skills in life. And who knows where that goes from there? You start to figure out who you are. The point is, what I'm kind of suggesting is if you don't know who you are at 18 and you don't know who you are, you can't know who you want to be. Are you really suited to go and making the choice about your future when it's an expensive choice and it's 3 years? Degree programs are 3 years and now they cost a lot of money. And yes, you borrow it and you don't pay tax on it and all these kind of things that people try and say. Trust me, I'm still paying my student debt. I would like to not have to pay that now. That would be nice. For me, it's worked out fine. But for some people, they have that debt but don't have the job that I have. And that's really problematic for them. So I guess you go when you know who you are and who you want to be, or at least you know to some degree. Now, I find some students come and study with me and they don't really know, but they kind of like the area. That's okay. I support that. It's a hook. They've got something to do. But really, when I went, I knew exactly what I wanted to be. Now, did I end up doing that? No, but I had drive. I had a vision and I had an idea about what I wanted to do, which meant when I went into my course, that was it. I was going to succeed. There was nothing going to get in the way of me succeeding in that degree. And I don't see that sort of mentality in a lot of our students. I don't see that drive to succeed because of what preceded it. I knew I didn't want to work in the same way I was. I knew that I'd found something that I had an interest in, and that drove me. That got me through. Now, like I said, I wasn't super academic. Now I've got a PhD. And it's because of that kind of drive that I found, that personal drive and that personal enjoyment of what I was doing. I also think people should go when they know how to work. A lot of our students, unfortunately, don't know how to work in a simple sense. You know, what's work? 9 to 5. It's boring, right? It's 9 to 5. It's routine. It's simple. It's repetitive. They don't know how to do that. They understand it. They could tell you, but they don't do it. I had that. I'm not the hardest worker in the world. I'm not the laziest person in the world, but I know how to work 9 to 5. And I did that with my degree, and I found it relatively simple. I actually did that in my master's and my PhD. And I found them all relatively simple in comparison to some of the challenges that people have. Just working 9 to 5 and getting it done most days, I did it. There was hard times, but that was that. So know we know how to work. Know when you recognize the privilege that going to university is. So many of our students don't understand how lucky they are to be there, 1. 2, how lucky they are to have a time when they can just sit and think and read about stuff they're interested in. How many adults who are listening to this just wish they could sit for a week and read about some topics they're interested in? My word. Most of you, I assume. And our undergraduates don't appreciate that. They don't understand it if they've come straight through from school. I appreciated that. I left the world of work and I went to university and I was like, this is amazing. I get to read about stuff that I was really interested in. And I just loved it. I loved spending time in the library reading about stuff. I nerded out. I got geeky. That's good, right? That's good for getting a degree. So you have to understand that. If you don't understand what you've got in front of you, how lucky you are to have it, then you can't kind of enjoy that process. You can't embrace it as well. And then the final one, and there's probably some more to this. I've only kind of thought on this a little bit the last couple of days, but there's probably some more to this, which I'm happy to discuss with people if they want to have a chat with me about any of this stuff. But go when you can support yourself. I was lucky enough that I could work in a bar, I could do gym instructing, and I could demonstrate to most employers that I was very, very employable. And I did that when I was at university. I worked part-time throughout the whole thing. Now, we encourage our students to be careful about how much they work part-time because they've got to study and they've got to focus on their studies. But I did jobs where I worked in the gym on campus. I was on campus anyway, and I actually used it to be able to make sure that I went to campus, did my work, went to work, actual paid work in the evening, did that, went home, started again, and got into a nice routine. And it worked for me. It worked quite well for me. And if you have an issue around supporting yourself, or if you're an adult and you're thinking about your children or guardians, encourage them to be able to get some plan in place so that, yes, they're going to borrow to cover the fees, and they might have to borrow a little bit for the rent, but actually they can cover the rest of their costs themselves by working. That will only work if they know how to work and that they've put that time in to be able to develop those skills so that they're employable. I'm not talking about, really complicated work here. I cleaned a gym and I worked in a bar from time to time, but it helped, and it gave me something away from university life, which meant that I wasn't just in the SU drinking pints all day as well. Anyway, a few thoughts there, a little bit of a provocative title to try and get people to engage in the idea, but something to think about. Hopefully some ideas that you can think about yourself. Hopefully some ideas, if you have someone in your life who's thinking about going to university, to support them through. Get in touch, have a look at uni prep, and some of the other stuff that I put online around success at university. There's a few other points on the website to have a look at there. Okay, hope that's helpful. See you all again soon.